Hello and welcome to another episode of Killing the Boredom, a podcast where I just talk about stuff, movies, TV shows, books, video games that I've checked out over the past week or couple of weeks. And I just talk about them here in the hopes that maybe you find something that you are interested in checking out. So I'm going to just get straight into it. The first thing that I've checked out recently, over the past two episodes, I've talked about the past two installments of the Fear Street trilogy. Part 1 in 1994 and Part 2 in 1978. This week I'm going to talk about Part 3, 1666. So in the previous episodes I talked about how these movies didn't blow me away. I didn't hate them. Look, I thought the first one was pretty good in that it kind of surprised me towards the end. I thought it was quite predictable. I'll give spoilers away for the first two as I'm talking about them. If you want to hear my thoughts on them, check out the last two episodes of Killing the Boredom. So I checked out the first one and I thought it was kind of okay for the most part. But when they killed off two of the main characters in the last 30 minutes, I really wasn't expecting that. I thought the whole movie was quite predictable up until then. And then that kind of threw a real spanner in the works. And then the twist at the end that the curse hadn't been lifted, I thought was also, I actually didn't expect it. Despite knowing that there were two more movies, I didn't think that this plot line from the first film would go through more. I thought they were going to be kind of standalones. The other things I enjoyed about this movie was the soundtrack. I liked the aesthetic. And I thought it was decent. I thought that the ending was enough to kind of reel me in for the second movie. Then I watched the second movie and I didn't enjoy it as much. I thought the kills were still quite good in this second one, although there were less of them. And I found the characters probably slightly more enjoyable. But overall, I didn't find the movie as enjoyable experience as the first one because I thought it was more predictable. Because after you knew that they were going to take risks, like in the first one, you kind of knew that in the second one, that was always on the table, which made it just a lot less thrilling. And I thought it was, it was okay. It was a pretty middling movie. I didn't like it as much as the first one purely because it didn't have that surprise factor. And then, so this week, the third one, so this is the conclusion of the trilogy, whereas with the first one, it's mostly set in 1994. The second one, there's that, flashback to 1978. This one has a large portion of it is set in 1666, as the title would suggest. And I thought that, I don't know, I just found it kind of, I guess I should explain what happened. So you see in 1666, you see how this curse of the witch started. You see, it's kind of set. It's kind of like the Crucible, like it's set in that sort of time period and that sort of environment, like a small town of, I don't know what you would call them, like those really devout Christians back in the 1600s, like the settlers. I don't know what you would call them, but yeah, so it's set during that period, and you see how this curse of the witch started, and how it's carried through into today. And I don't know, I just I don't know, I just didn't really find it that engaging. I thought there were a lot less kills than in the first two movies. The first two movies had more kills that were more gory, and this had less of that. And I'm not saying that's kind of the defining factor of what makes or breaks this kind of movie, but it just sort of, it was just kind of boring. So, and then like it finishes off the storyline that started in the first movie, and I thought it was like a fair enough conclusion. I thought that the story made sense throughout, which I thought was good. Like it wasn't, I was wondering where it was kind of going, and I thought that the ending that they ended up going with, it made sense. And I thought that it was a suitable ending, but it wasn't even that the execution was necessarily bad. This movie was just boring. It just wasn't that engaging. And I guess in retrospect, the first movie wasn't that engaging either. It was just kind of that shock factor. And yeah, I mean, these last two movies weren't, they just didn't really interest me. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about it, and I'm sorry that my description is kind of vague, but it was kind of middling. There's nothing really that I can point out that was necessarily that good about it, um, or that bad about it, really. It was just, yeah, just kind of boring. I think probably the worst of the three, though there's probably not much of a difference. I know I've said in the past that I'll only talk about stuff that I really enjoy on this podcast. But I didn't know this movie was gonna be like this. I didn't know, after the first movie, I'm like, okay, hopefully the second and third ones are better because I heard the first one was the worst, and it's just, I don't know, it just, yeah, it wasn't that engaging. And also, I made the prediction last week that I thought each of the movies would explore kind of a different type of female relationship, sisters, lovers. I thought this one would be mother daughter or maternal, and it wasn't, which I'm not that disappointed with. But I thought that was kind of I don't know. I think that would have been interesting if each of the movies explored a different type of you know female relationship. Yeah, look, I didn't hate the movie. I didn't think it was bad. I thought all the performances were fine. The writing is a bit off at sometimes. I think there's just some strange, I don't know, strange comments, like off the cuff remarks that didn't really make sense by certain characters. Not even that they necessarily didn't make sense. It just wasn't accurate, or it just wasn't a good representation of how conversation would. It was just not that great writing. Um, but overall, yeah, I thought it was okay. It was, yeah, it was fine. I'd give it a five, a middle five, straight down the middle. Wasn't look. There was the conclusion made sense, but it just, yeah, it just wasn't much. But anyway, that's all I really have to say about that. If you guys liked it though, comment why, send me an email why. I would love to get an alternative perspective on it, because I thought they were competently made, the whole trilogy, and there's obviously a lot of care taken into making them. You can tell, like, the cinematography is quite nice, the set design and the costumes are all really good. I just thought they weren't that engaging. But anyway, that's all I really have to say about that. The next thing I want to talk about is something that I enjoyed significantly more than I did that trilogy, and this is a video game. So it's free on PS Plus. If you've got the PlayStation 5, it is the game A Plague Tale: Innocence. So this game, I think, was made in 2019, and it basically follows the story of, so it's set in the 14th century, I believe, and it follows the story of this girl, Amicia, and this journey that she goes on with her brother Hugo. And Hugo, she yeah, sorry, I just stepped away then. I just got a phone call. But yeah, so it follows the story of Amicia and her younger brother Hugo, and she hasn't, when they're establishing the characters, Amicia hasn't had much of a relationship with Hugo because as he's been growing up, he's been very sick, and so she's been kept away from him purely because he's constantly needed to be treated for this mysterious illness that he has, and consequently, his mother, their mother, doesn't have much of a relationship with Amicia as well because she's constantly taking care of him. And so the story starts with, they're in this castle, and then suddenly there's these knights, and these basically bad guys come, and Amicia is told to flee with Hugo and to protect him. And over the course of the game, we see this relationship develop between the two. It very much reminded me of The Last of Us in the way Joel and Ellie kind of are just thrown together in this situation and seeing this relationship develop throughout the course of the game. And it's revealed, I'll talk about it in spoilers, but yeah, so it's a stealth game it's a stealth game. I've really found that both the actual gameplay and the story of the game are both absolutely fantastic. It's such an engaging storyline, and I find like usually with games, like I love video games, but I find that it's very hard, or at least hard for me to engage with a story the same in a video game as I do in a movie. Obviously, there's some exceptions, like The Last of Us being a notable one. That game has such a great storyline and such great characters and such great writing that it is hard not to engage with it. But I find for the most part, games, I have a much larger focus on gameplay and mechanics and graphics and stuff like that, art style, more so than story. Obviously, the story is important, but I really enjoy those other aspects a lot more. But this game has such a great story, and this relationship between Amicia and Hugo feels so realistic, and it's just it's very well written. It's such a beautiful looking game as well, and I think that helps to, add to the story, because these environments that you're playing in and that you're navigating are so immersive that it's hard not to be drawn into it. And especially like some of the environments, like say going through a 13th century, a 14th century battleground, because it's in the middle of the, I believe, 100 Years War, and just seeing all the wreckage and like catapults and piles of dead bodies, like in the the like the armor from that time period. It's very interesting, and because there's not many games or even movies really that explore that time period, at least none that I've really encountered. So it's really cool, and exploring those environments. And obviously another thing that's happening during this time period is the Black Plague. So there's lots of mice everywhere, and that really plays into the game, like into the story and mechanics of the game. So as you're navigating this world, in the 14th century, 1300s, there's lots of shut down like towns that are in quarantine, and lots of like so there's lots of areas where there's lots of mice running around. If you go into the areas with the mice, you die. So that becomes a gameplay mechanic, because the mice, they are repelled by light. So a lot of the gameplay, so there's a lot of stealth and getting around guards and stuff like that. But another major aspect of the gameplay is it's kind of like puzzles, trying to figure out how to get through, say, a large horde of mice, using light and fire, setting certain things alight, extinguishing some things to lure rats some way. And in that way as well, the rats also become a weapon, because you can use light to make rats go towards an enemy who would usually kill you, and then use the mice to eat them. It's really cool. It's a really cool mechanic. And the whole gameplay is really, I felt like it's very balanced. There's a good mixture of puzzle areas where you need to try to figure out how to escape a certain area because you're trapped in because of rats or guards everywhere. But also a good amount of kind of action set pieces where you need to take out guards using your slingshot. It's not a slingshot. It's like it's a sling, right? And yeah, that's another thing I liked about it as well, and I thought made it very immersive. It's very cinematic. There are quite a few set pieces. It's very tense, like areas where you have to run away from enemies with Hugo, because you play as Amicia. It's very tense, and there's been a while since there's been a game that's made me physically like tense up, really not wanting to be killed in the game, because you just feel like there's so much at stake, because of how invested you are into these characters. So basically, as you're proceeding, the whole point of the game is just to basically, you need to find someone to make Hugo better, because he's sick, and obviously his mother can't take care of him because she's told you to flee after she's been after the Inquisition have stormed the manor and started killing people, and it's kind of very Last of Us in that way. You need to find a person to, make someone better, to heal them, I guess. To you, like, obviously that's not the same as The Last of Us, but it's kind of similar, right? And you go to one place to another, and they'll tell you, no, you need to go through here, you need to go through there, and it's very Last of Us in that sense. Also, kind of how you're playing one character, and then there's another character who's not controllable, but can also still help you and assist you. And along the way during the game, you obviously encounter many other characters who each have, certain abilities they can do. Like some can lockpick, some can take out enemies. And I thought that just added a bit of variety to the game. But yeah, look, I thought this game was fantastic, and I think, like, if you've got a PlayStation 5 and PS Plus, download it. Like, it's free. I think I put a solid, like, maybe 10-15 hours into it, and I'm going to try and platinum it, because it's just a great game. As I said, it's so beautiful looking, and also haunting. And I thought the way it explored, the theme of innocence was really good as well, because obviously you're playing this teenage girl, Amicia, and she has to, kill people to protect her and her brother. And even though these people are bad, they're guards that are trying to kill her, she needs to, she's still a kid, and there's a lot of dealing with this guilt of the things she's had to do to protect her and Hugo. And I thought it explored the themes brilliantly. In particular, there's one sequence that sent chills down my spine. It's kind of like a dream sequence. And it was just so dark, and the imagery was absolutely brilliant. I guess I'll just go on to spoilers, because I kind of want to talk about the imagery without giving it away. So I'd give this game like a 9. Like, it is almost a 10. It is probably the best game I've played this year. Even though it didn't come out this year, the PS5 version did. This game is awesome. Seriously, one of the best games I've played in a while. The gameplay is awesome. It looks beautiful. The story is great. Even the boss battles are quite, like, because I find in games, I hate boss battles that just drag on forever and are just too challenging. You just can't get past them. The boss battles in this are challenging, but they're also pretty fair. So, and they don't go on forever. Like, I think all the bosses you can probably beat within 10 minutes fairly easily. And yeah, look, it's just a great game. You should definitely play it. The mechanics are really cool, like the mechanic of the sling, and getting different types of ammunition. It's good, and there's like crafting in the game, which usually I'm not a massive fan on. But there's not a lot to craft. There's probably like 15 things maximum, and it feels, it doesn't really overbear. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's pretty simple crafting mechanic. And it works. It's a good balance. So I'll talk spoilers. So this sequence occurs when Amicia loses Hugo later in the game, and she's feeling the guilt, and she's running to chase Hugo in this dream. And I love how she runs into this underground tunnel, and there's all these like arms reaching out to her of all these like dead people. I thought the imagery was awesome. Like, a lot of the imagery in this game is just incredibly dark and disturbing, and like, you don't see, at least not, I don't know, there's been very few games where there's been such a cinematic moment that's been so disturbing, or that has impacted me so much, and it sent chills down my spine. It was incredible. It was like a movie scene, that sequence, and you'll know it when you come to it. Obviously, as I said, this is spoilers, so don't get angry if I ruined it for you. Obviously it's later revealed in the game as well that Hugo's real sickness is that he has something in his blood called a macula, which allows him to control certain things, control like the rats. So later in the game you can control the rats, and that's really fun, because early in the game you're quite powerless. You've only got this sling with the rock, and there's a lot of it is just hiding from guards. And as you develop new types of ammunition for your sling, you become more powerful, and there's kind of more ways you can approach the game. So you can try to go around the guards, you can try to use fire to repel rats towards the guards. But then, as you're getting more and more powerful throughout the game, like with Hugo, you can control the rats. to take out the guards. And I thought that was just a very enjoyable. It felt very rewarding to feel the progression of becoming more and more powerful. Um, I really enjoyed a lot of the side characters this in this game. Yeah, I don't really have much else to add. I thought the game was fantastic, and you should play it. I'll be back in one moment. I just need to quickly do something. Okay, I'm back. So the last thing I want to talk about today is, well, I was going to talk about the newest Kanye album, Donda, because it was supposed to release on Friday. But I guess I've decided that in the meantime, because Kanye's been notorious for delaying albums, I will talk about each of his albums for each episode until Donda comes out. And then hopefully after Donda comes out, I can talk about that. And then hopefully beyond that, I will continue talking about his other albums. Because Kanye West is probably my favorite artist in any medium. He has had such a large impact on me. I find him a very motivational figure. I know that he's quite controversial, obviously, but I just, you know, I really appreciate his art. I think he's just a brilliant artist. I think he makes beautiful music. I think he really speaks from the soul. And I've not really found another artist that I respect as much as him, just in terms of artistic integrity and his drive to succeed and create greatness. I got into him about 2 years ago, and yeah, since then I've been following him very closely. I've actually got two posters of him in my room, to show how obsessed I am with him. And I don't know, he really drives me. I really enjoy his stuff a lot. So this week I'm going to talk about where it all started, the College Dropout. And just a disclaimer before I start this, I know people are probably going to be mad with me and call me a fucking Zoomer and whatever, but the College Dropout doesn't resonate with me as much as his later albums, particularly everything after My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I just find that thematically and sonically, they're just a lot more complex. This isn't to discount his earlier stuff, but the College Dropout, I think, is probably, apart from Jesus is King and maybe Yay, probably my least favorite Kanye album. It just doesn't resonate with me as much as the others. But I'll go into why as I talk about the album. So, obviously, this album is considered by many to be a classic. And you can see why. Look, the production on this thing is incredible. It is just so smooth throughout. The chipmunk soul samples in a lot of the songs are really beautiful. On top of the incorporation of a lot of strings and the incorporation of like choirs, especially in songs like Jesus Walks, Never Let Me Down. These songs are just, have such a great production. There's so many elements, and Kanye manages in all of these songs to not make any of them feel like they're overproduced or that there's too much going on. It doesn't feel chaotic at all. It feels very smooth. It feels very beautiful, and you can see the influence this has had on, a lot of artists. This really complex, beautiful production with so many elements. And this sort of smoothness. The one I can think of probably the most is Tyler, the Creator. A lot of his production, particularly in Call Me If You Get Lost and Flower Boy, though they don't sound specifically Kanye, this use of so many elements, this kind of orchestral feel to the music, this smooth and a smoothness, and it just feels like everything is, despite so many different sounds, that they all just fit in together really well. So I'm just going to talk about a couple of songs in this album. We Don't Care, obviously, is a really good song. What a great opener. Great first song of your first album. Obviously, he has the intro, but this is the first proper song in the album. And then after that, we have like All Falls Down, Spaceship, these again are very smooth songs where Kanye's talking about kind of, wage disparity and kind of being at the bottom of this socioeconomic ladder, but having aspirations of climbing it. It's kind of crazy looking back at these songs and then thinking about where he is now as a multi-billionaire in the space of just 15 years, really 17 years. It's fucking unreal when you look back at these songs. I like all these songs. We Don't Care, All Falls Down, and Spaceship. I wouldn't say I love any of them. I would say they're all good songs. I know a lot of people really like Spaceship because of that sample, and it is quite nice production. I think the song that I like the most out of these three is We Don't Care. Just a really enjoyable song, really, really fun, really like bright. Even the lyrics aren't that happy, but the production's really beautiful, as is, with most of the songs in this album. After this, however, Jesus Walks and Never Let Me Down are two of the best songs on the album, obviously. Jesus Walks has such classic production, so that boom, 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 boom. It's just so iconic. And, the rap Kanye is giving, talking about Jesus, it's so, at the time, it was so left field. It was just so radical, right? Like, and it's just crazy to see the impact, how iconic this song is in Kanye's whole discography. And it kind of just sums him up as an artist as a whole. Like, he's always been very original, wanting to, be himself in face of, in spite of what everyone told him he could or couldn't do. He's always strived to be original as he could be, and just make the art that he wants. And obviously this has worked out really well for him in just all the music he's made. He's always been very original and just stuck to an image that... Sorry, I'm just being distracted a lot. It's very loud in my house right now. But yeah, so yeah, basically it's very, typical of his, his whole career. He's just created the stuff that he's wanted to create. Yeah, I mean, it's a great song. I really love the vocal samples in all of his songs are really good. Jesus Walks, Never Let Me Down. I think Never Let Me Down is probably the best song on the album. Just the choir bits. It's such a beautiful sounding song. Sounds very transcendent, I guess. Like, it's just it's such a beautiful song. Sends like, chills down my spine, every time I listen to it. Beautiful song. I'm going to talk about a few of the later songs in the album. Two Words is another really good song on this album. I really love the guitar sample. It's just very just energetic, in your face. The kind of rapping that they're doing is I thought very creative, like just doing that sort of, I guess, I don't know if this is the word, but that didactic kind of, 2 words, this, that, this, that, this, that. I thought was really creative, and it just creates a really cool flow, and just like, it brings a lot of energy to the song. Obviously, after 2 Words, we have Through the Wire, which is obviously a classic. Kanye rapping this song with his jaw wide shut after a car crash. Really cool song. I really like how he makes the sample sound like through the wire, though it's saying through the fire. Family Business is another really good song, probably my second favorite song on the album. Just a very nice song, like a relaxing kind of happy mellow song where Kanye is paying tribute to his family and talking about how, although family is flawed, we are, at the end of the day, family, and we, stick together. It's a good song. And the last song, Last Call, is a great closer. Just talking about how Kanye's come up and all the adversity he's faced and what he had to do to get to where he was before the College Dropout eventually dropped. And it's crazy just listening to that song and, just seeing how much belief he had in himself despite being constantly knocked back. And that's obviously a big reason of why he is where he is. That's all I really have to... That's all the songs I really want to talk about. Look, obviously, as I said, this album has some great songs, but there's a 20-minute section between Never Let Me Down and School Spirit, where there's literally only one good song. I think Breathe Out, the new workout plan, and Get 'Em High are probably three of the worst songs Kanye has ever put on an album. And I get that the point of these songs is kind of to just be kind of fun and not as, serious or have the same social commentary. Something such as Jesus Walks, Never Let Me Down, Family Business. But I just, look, I don't like these songs, and I feel like if those songs were maybe more spread out, it probably wouldn't affect how much I think of this album. But if I'm listening to this album from beginning to end, that 20-minute period where the only song that brings up is Slow Jams, which is obviously a great song, but that 20-minute period where most of it is not that great really brings down the score for me. And it just makes the College Dropout a lot less listenable, in my opinion, compared to some of his other albums, which are a lot more cohesive. And whenever there's a lull, it's brought back up very quickly. Look, overall, I think I give this album like a high 7, which is it's still really good. It's just it doesn't hit that level of greatness I think that his other albums do. That's all I've really got to talk about this week. I'm sorry that it's a bit disruptive and a bit like I've started and stopped. It's just very loud in my house at the moment, so it's a bit hard to concentrate. But I've enjoyed talking about this. I'm looking forward to hopefully talking about Donda next week. That's all really. Thank you very much for listening, and hit me up at killingtheboredompod@gmail.com if you would like to message me. And thanks for listening. Hope you have a nice day. Bye.